Welcome to the Under 8 Podcast, a daily college basketball show brought to you every weekday in under 8 minutes. At the time of recording, it is Wednesday, January 24th, 11:35 p.m. My name is Josh Mullenix. On today's pod, a very good basketball game in Alabama, and Northwestern and Iowa State both get wins in conference play. It's all right now on the Under 8 Podcast. Josh Doering is here with me. Alabama 79, number 8 Auburn 75 inside Coleman Coliseum in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. A very close basketball game between two top 10 Ken Palm teams, but it's the unranked Crimson Tide that leave tonight with a victory, Josh.
We talked about this on Monday with the AP poll. In fact, Auburn has 0 quad 1 wins.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Auburn still has 0 quad 1 wins. It looked like for a second they might have pulled this one back.
Mm-hmm.
After Alabama did Alabama shooting things in the first half. And ultimately, the story here for me is really two things. One, Bama had 4 players with 14-plus points. Auburn had 1. That was Johnny Broome, who had 25 and 14 and was easily the best player on the floor.
5 blocks, too.
Yep. Outside of that, though, they just didn't get quite enough. And wasn't the most efficient night from Bama. It's not like they shot 45% from 3. But they got enough from their guys. Enough guys made plays. And Auburn in this 11-game winning streak had scored 80-plus points in 10 of those games.
Mm-hmm.
And the offense wasn't quite as good in this one. You combine those things with Alabama being a good basketball team playing at home, and you're going to lose this one sometimes.
Yeah. Fill in the blank for me. Alabama is a top blank team in the country.
20 to 25.
Okay. What do trending up, trending down, kind of just sitting right there? What's your temperature check on Alabama right now?
Definitely trending up. They finally they've been close against some of these teams they've played.
Mm-hmm.
Right, the big high profile non-conference games in particular. They just came up a little bit short in all of them.
Yep.
So to finally get on the right side of a game that could have gone either way, that you put yourself in position to win, was very important. To prove that you can actually win this game.
Mm-hmm.
Because this is the inverse of what I usually think about Alabama, which is the wild fluctuation. You never know what you're getting night to night, but you know on the right night, both ends of the floor, they can look like the best team in the country. And
Sure.
They can beat anybody.
Sure.
They haven't proven yet this season. And probably beating Auburn doesn't prove that either, because Auburn hasn't exactly got those signature wins yet either, as we've talked about.
Mm-hmm.
They're good. They're clearly good. They're actually pretty consistent. They've been really good in SEC play, winning the games they're supposed to. Hasn't been the most difficult schedule, but they're getting the job done. If I am teams in the NCAA tournament, though, if I am Kentucky, Tennessee, for example, I am not scared of this team the way I am teams in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Even if maybe they're set up for a little bit more tournament success, maybe, although they can't defend, so that's another issue that we can talk about another day. But that would be how I answer that question. Is they're good. I just don't see the ceiling, which is maybe to a certain extent a good thing that they've actually kind of established. This is sort of what you can expect from them every night, but also what you can expect is not what you knew you could get in years past with the best teams Nate Oates has had.
I think that's pretty fair. Auburn on that side. Auburn hadn't lost since December 3rd. when they lost on the road at App State. There are only 2 losses coming into tonight were Baylor on the opening night of the season and then App State on December 3rd. So they had been on a roll both offensively and defensively. They've only given up over 68. They've only given up over 68 points 3 times in that win streak stretch, and one of those games they scored 93 points, so giving up 78 is not an issue, and the other one they scored 91, so it wasn't really an issue. So this was the first time in a while that somebody put up upwards of 80 points against Auburn in a game where it actually was meaningful that they put up upwards of 80 points against Bruce Pearl's team.
Yeah, I was looking at that too. And either basically Auburn just outscored the teams that they didn't play great defense against, or they played good enough defense that when they weren't at their best offensively, it didn't matter. They had at least one or the other, if not both. And this game, the offense was pretty good. The defense was okay.
Mm-hmm.
And those two things on the road in the SEC against a good basketball team that made some 3-pointers, not always enough to get.
Yeah, not totally surprised that they're leaving Tuscaloosa tonight with a loss. Number 10, Illinois, 91. Unranked Northwestern, 96. Boo Booey got some help in this one. And when Boo Booey gets some help on the same night that he scores 29, I'm not sure there's a team in the country that Northwestern can't beat, especially in Evanston. So he had 29. Ty Berry had 14, 23 from Brooks Barnizer. It was, I mean, you even got 12 from Matthew Nicholson. It was an offensive night that Boo Booey dreams about in terms of supporting cast. And it was just barely, but it was enough to beat an Illinois team that got good performances on the offensive end as well.
It was also timed pretty well in the sense that Ty Berry has foul trouble in the first half, so Brooke Barnhizer gets going. Then Ty Berry comes back out at halftime and kind of takes over for a little bit. Then he cools off a little bit. Barnhizer makes a couple plays, and then down the stretch, it's Boo Booey, who just made play after play after play. It was this perfect combination where it didn't have to be Boo Booey all night long, but there was always somebody who was really hot offensively that you could kind of run things through, and that's exactly what you want. And then you've got your go-to guard to seal the deal late to really take control of overtime. And yeah, from an Illinois standpoint, I mean, they did beat this team by 30. Mm-hmm. It's worth noting that, but Northwestern's just a different team at home than on the road. That's not exclusive to them by any means. Mm-hmm. And this isn't a big deal if you're Illinois. Now, do you want to win road games if you're trying to keep pace with Purdue and Wisconsin? Obviously, that starts you in the Big Ten title race. To me, though, it's reinforcement of the thing I've been saying all season, where Tanner Shannon was not anywhere near the best player on the floor for Illinois in this game. That we can talk, and obviously there's a lot of awkwardness with him being back and the way that things are going, and nobody's really able to comment on anything because of the legal situation. There's a lot going on there. But just putting that aside, keeping it on the floor, it's not like getting him back completely changes the ceiling of this team. Maybe it elevates it a little bit, but I still firmly believe that they have enough talent without him, and that there's enough that has to be sacrificed when he's the guy, that the net gain and the net loss just is not that significant, and they are a top 10 to 15 team, if not top 5 to 10, whether they have him or not. And so now it's about, at least for now, you have him. Can you get him kind of reacclimated? And obviously, he hasn't played in a while. You're trying to get his feet back under him, get him confident again, have him just get comfortable back in the space he's now operating in. But they still almost won this game in a tough environment in a place Purdue already lost without him playing all that well, because the rest of the Coleman Hawkins had a good game. You knew what you were getting from Domask. You know what you can get from Guerrier. That was the other thing that stood out to me from an Illinois standpoint.
Indeed. That's an interesting Because there's part of me that thinks, "What are you talking about? Of course, they're way better with Terrence Shannon Jr." But I think there's probably a conversation to be had about what kind of production you can get from guys like Domask and guys like Coleman Hawkins. And you saw it when he, wasn't playing. You saw Marcus Domask have some really impressive games, and you've also seen Marcus Domask hit a different level of consistency
Mhm.
that you hadn't seen.
Yep.
And that correlates some with Terrence Shannon being out. So I think that's really interesting, and it'll be something that you keep an eye on because Brad Underwood almost went from a situation of, Terrence Shannon is the guy to, uh, are there too many cooks in the kitchen, and how do we divvy up
Mhm.
responsibility? Even though, like, even if he doesn't, maybe he does say it out loud. Like Terrence Shannon, when he's on the floor, has earned the right to be the guy, but that doesn't mean you're not taking. In this particular game, I mean, Domas took 10 more shots than Terrence Shannon Jr. So
Mm.
it's not like Domas isn't getting the opportunities. Anyways, I think that's really interesting. 96-91, Northwestern beats Illinois.
Oh, can I add 2 things real quick?
Totally.
Sorry. Yeah, and to be very clear, this is about more regular season and consistently game to game than it is NCAA tournament. If they're going to the Final Four, the chances of that are significantly better with Terrence Shannon. Want to make that
Totally.
part still clear. Second
Totally.
thing, don't need to really dwell on this too much, but just throwing it out there. Think about how different Northwestern's resume would be had they lost 2 overtime games that they won.
Well, let me take a look.
Just
Let me take a
just think
peek.
about that.
Yeah. So instead of 14-5 with wins over Purdue and Illinois, you're 12-7, and your best win is Dayton at home. That's a good win, but it's definitely no Purdue in Illinois.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mean, they made the plays to win in overtime. They earned the victories in the end. But that did strike me that we are talking. I really like this team. I'm not shocked they're doing this. It's
Mhm.
a difficult place to play, but we'd be talking about an awful lot differently had they not had those 2 overtime periods go their way.
Toughest place to play in the country, Hilton Coliseum. Yay or nay? Probably nay.
I
Is
can't
it in
I
Mackey?
can't in good
Is it Mackey
conscience
right now?
say nay. Yeah. As much as I want to say yes, it is one of the 10 most difficult. I'll go that far.
12-0 in Hilton
Yeah.
Coliseum this year. 12-0
Yeah.
in Hilton Coliseum. Tonight, it's a 78-67 win over Jerome Tang and the Kansas State Wildcats. Listen, when Iowa State scores 78, they're going to win. It's just the way that it's going to be. Even on a night where Taman Lipsey is 2 of 10 from the field, you get plenty from other people. You get 26 off the bench, 18 of those coming from Curtis Jones. Yeah, if you put up upwards of 80 points inside Hilton Coliseum with TJ Altenberger coaching your defense, yeah, you're probably going to win by 11 to 15 points.
They put up 41 in the first half, and give Kansas State credit,
I thought it
they
was
got
over.
them yeah, they
Yeah, I
got
thought it was
themselves
over.
back into this game. And then ultimately it's the challenge of, okay, you put the run together to get back in the game. Can you put the next run together to take the lead?
Yeah.
And that's where it fell apart. And Iowa State regrouped and dominated the last couple minutes of the game to get the victory that looks way more comfortable than it actually was ultimately. This is one of those weird games for me that I don't really know what to do with, because if you're Iowa State, you should win this game.
Mhm.
It should go exactly the way it did, where you looked like you were the better team over 40 minutes and you dominated the first half and you dominated the final 4 or 5 minutes. And if you're Kansas State, you're not expected to win this game. So it's not like there's anything to really evaluate here from a this went horribly wrong.
Mhm.
Like you said, if Iowa State scores the basketball, they're probably going to beat you inside Hilton Coliseum. Nobody's figured
Mhm.
out how to do that yet.
Yeah.
And at the same time, both of these teams are kind of in the same spot, which is if you are going to hang with Texas Tech, if they're able to stay in this, Kansas, Baylor, Houston, whoever ends up being the front runner for the regular season title, it's going to come down to your ability to win games on the road and to not lose games you should win at home, right? Because you've got to expect most of these teams are going to win their home games. Yeah. Houston has looked really good at home. We know what Kansas does at home. Iowa State's been perfect. Right. Baylor's going to win most of their home games. Can you go beat the other teams in this conference on the road? It's what Kansas hasn't been able to do. It's what Houston hasn't been able to do. It's what these two teams generally have not really been able to do. And so, yeah, it's not a bad loss, obviously, for Kansas State. Just it's one of those games where if you win, now we're having a different conversation because you just got a really good road win and you're still sitting there with one conference loss. Now you're in the same spot as everybody else, which is you win some road games, you lose most of them, and you win your home games. And so it's just still this complete jumbled mess trying to figure out who is actually the best team in this conference and how many teams are actually going to be there in the title race when it's all said and done. Also, Milan Momcilovic, it's not going to be this season. He's going to be a star, though. I love him. Absolutely love him.
Hey, every time I look up, he's got 19 on 50% shooting. Every time I look up. 78-67. Anything else from the evening?
Just two other things I wanted to recognize. Oklahoma women, top 10 road win over Texas.
Saw that.
Good for the Sooners. In the Big East, men's side, St. John's, Providence, big wins. Not good for Villanova, but Providence also not good for Seton Hall. Both those teams look terrible on offense, but credit to St. John's, Providence, what they did on defense to stop the bleeding a little bit, get some confidence back, restore some order. Now the question is, okay, you've got all of these games that you could win and could lose. You won one of them. Congratulations. Can you go do it again and keep yourself on the right side of the NCAA tournament bubble? But those were the other games I was keeping an eye on tonight.
24 months from now, is Colin Neptune still the coach of Villanova?
Oh, boy. 24.
January 2026.
Yes. If you push that to 20.
What if I push it to April 15th, 2026?
I'm gonna say no.
The answer, the no is the odds-on favorite right now.
I don't see him being fired in season.
I don't think so either.
Do I see them making a coaching change if we have 2 more seasons of this? Yes. And do you have any reason to believe it's going to look different than this? At this point, no.
It'll either be 15 months from now or, 27 months from now.
Right.
Yeah. I don't actually think he'll be fired in season at any point.
No. And there's no way it's going to be. He's going to get at least.
I don't think it's after 2024, 25.
No.
But with that being said, and we've talked about it a million times, you don't get 4 years anymore.
If there's a spot,
you don't get a full recruiting cycle. And it's tough to be the guy who replaces Jay Wright.
Yeah. And also, if it was 4 years, if that logic held for Jay Wright probably would have gone too.
Yeah, you're probably right.
There is part of this for Villanova that the last time they were patient and went through things that were probably even worse than this, it paid off for them.
Sure.
I do think I would answer that with more confidence if it was a different program. But I am with you that you can't have 4 consecutive seasons of this. We're at 1 2/3 at this point. So we'll see how things continue to go from here. Right now, though, yeah, I would have to say I've given up confidence it's going to look any different or that it's going to turn into what we thought it would.
Yeah, to be clear, I don't really have any interest in calling for Kyle Neptune's job. That's not what this is about. Yeah. It's just it's so clearly different, and
right. How much longer can you tolerate?
And it's not
go with this. Yeah,
but considering what Villanova got accustomed to over the last 17, 18 years, this is what we're seeing is not good enough. And what he brought in the transfer portal, what he had coming back, 11-8 and 4-4 in the Big East, losers of 4 of their last 5, and you just got smoked by St. John's, a team that they lost to by a combined 30 points over the 2 games that they played, is not good enough. So, just something that I've been pondering, thinking about, and will continue to keep an eye on. That's going to do it. Wednesday, January 24th. It is 11:55 p.m. It is time to go to bed. So that's what we're going to do. You should do the same. And we'll meet back here tomorrow night. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to your shows. Follow the Under 8 Pod on Twitter. Subscribe on YouTube. Thanks so much for being here. And we will see you tomorrow.